I'm Daniel Sorenson, and welcome to Working with Blends in Adobe Illustrator. I actually created these tutorials a few years ago for my design students, but the blend tools have changed very little over the years, and I think these tutorials are still as relevant today as they were back then. I think the blend tools are really cool. They're one of Illustrator's fantastic time-saving tools, and they give us tremendous creative possibilities. They're similar to gradients, but where gradients simply transition from one hue or opacity to another, the blend tools can actually transition from one shape to another, and they can create amazing three-dimensional looking wireframe graphic. Let's take a look at some examples. Now let's take a look at how blends work. And I'm going to start by just taking the simple star shape. And I will bring out my colors here and assign this a fill color. To begin with, let's give our objects no stroke. I'm going to hold down my Option key and drag the star to make a copy of it. And then I'm going to hold the Shift key and scale it up, and then I'll give it a new color. Now all we do in order to create a blend is to select our two objects or more, and then go up to Object, Blend, Make. Pretty amazing stuff. Now there are a few options we need to be aware of, so let's take a look at the Blend Options panel. The default is to create a blend using smooth color, but we could also choose specified steps, in which case we can tell it how many instances it needs to create for the blend. The smaller the number, the more obvious the different instances are going to be. Specified distance is the distance between each of the instances. So if I crank this up to say 26, hit the Tab key. Notice I've got the preview box checked here. With the preview box checked, we can make changes here in this field and then simply press the Tab key to see what it looks like. So that's giving us the distance between each of the instances. I'm going to go back to the smooth color for now. Say OK. Now you'll notice here that we have a line between the two objects. That line is called a spline, and it behaves exactly like a path, meaning that we can modify it using our pen and our selection tools. So I'm going to take my pen and add a point right there in the middle, and then hold down the Option key to get the Convert Point tool, because I want to change that from a corner point into a smooth. And that gives me a Bezier curve, which I can then modify. I think I'll make this star on the bottom a little bit smaller so that we have a more dramatic effect. And then I can also just move it out. I need to use the white arrow for that. I can take it, and I'm going to move this out a bit. I want to get right in the middle of the star. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, grab that star, and move it out just a little bit. I want to create a more dramatic curve here. Maybe I'll add another point. After I've already converted one of the corner points into the Bezier, the next point will automatically be a Bezier. So we can create this great twisting illustration here. And also we can go into the outline mode by pressing Command Y, and then we can finesse our spline to get it nice and smooth without being distracted by all of the instances of our blend. Now I'm going to press Command Y again and take a look at what we've got here. Pretty dramatic, but we're not seeing the definition very well of our star. One way we can deal with that now is by giving our objects a stroke. So I'm going to click on our top star here, bring my stroke forward and assign it a color. Wow, look at that. Pretty neat. I'm going to give this one back here a different color so you can see how we can blend from stroke color to stroke color, as well as object and object color around. We could also change the opacity of the object in the back. And then we're blending from opacity. To enhance the effect and make it even more dramatic, I'm going to rotate my top star. I'll click in the middle with the selection tool, and then I'm going to grab the black arrow and rotate this star and exaggerate the twist. I could also increase its size to make it even more dramatic. Now, when we create blends, the stacking order is critical to how the blend is going to appear. The first star I created, the smaller star, is lowest down in the stacking order in the Layers panel. And then that becomes the starting object. My second arrow is up above it, and that's my ending object. And I can change this order simply by dragging them up or down in the Layers panel, and I'm going to get a different result. This is a very strange looking twist now. The perspective's all thrown off. But I can just change it back, and there we are again. So you can see you can have all kinds of fun with this. It's pretty darn cool. Now, blends are not restricted to just two objects. As I said before, we can use multiple objects within a single blend. I'm going to create a compound shape here. A compound shape is one in which we have a hole in the middle. So we can take these two objects, I'll select them, then I go up to Object, Compound Path, Make. And now we've got an object with a hole in the middle. I'm going to apply a gradient to this, and some nice colors in there. Take the stroke off. This will be my starting object. I'm going to hold down the Option key and drag it up, and then hold down the Option and the Shift and scale it in. Again, now I'll select both objects, and I can go up to the Object menu, Blend, Make. Okay, now it looks like we're getting a blend based on, well, we're getting a smooth color, but it's not giving me the nice smooth color that I would really like. It's just giving me 3 steps. So I'm going to crank that up to 65 and see how that looks. Much better. I'm going to say OK to that. Now, let's take a look at my Layers panel. Here are my 2 compound paths. Now I'm going to make another ellipse. This one I'm just going to make it a solid color with no stroke again. And I'm going to center it. I have my smart guides on so I can see that it was centered. And I'm going to then drag it into, maybe I'll make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to drag it into my blends group. And now look what happens. Pretty amazing, very surprising. I'm going to get a different result every time I mess around with it. I'm going to drag this down, see what happens next. Interesting. I can also select these and lower their opacity. Now I get this really cool looking transparent, sort of translucent type of object. I'm going to create another shape to go inside here. And this one I'm just going to make a, well, maybe I'll make it a kind of a golden color. Leave the transparency on there. Give it a little bit darker here to make it even more dramatic. And now I'm going to bring this into my blend group and see what happens. Interesting. Sometimes it's a little hard to predict exactly what's going to happen, and you can't always take it back to the way it was. You see, now I've gotten a different result from what I had before, even though I've gone back to the same stacking order I had. It seems like every time you rearrange it, you're going to get a different result, and you could do the Command Z and go back, but simply rearranging it here in the Layers panel is not going to give you the same results. But with a little practice, you can get some very interesting looking objects. That's how these guys were created.